Hey guys, it's Phil coming back at you with another video. Today, I'm excited, I'm pumped up, I'm back. Hopefully everyone's doing well, practicing self-care, building themselves up, becoming the best possible version of themselves, pushing past self-doubt in order to walk into the life and gifts and talents that you've been granted. And I know that 29 people have done just that since my last video. Why? Because that's how many people have passed the exam while repping and rocking with me. And from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single person that does that. But let's see who are the people that have passed since my last video. And I'm amazed. And they are as follows: Jenny K, Dana N, John T, Claudia H, Lane H, Gina M, Spring B, DC, Unisha G, Liz C, Beth GT, Brian M, Carolyn S, Tavis S, DeLone H, Krista P, Chris F, Christina W, Andrew M, Erica W, Tessa S, Y'all BC, Jamie R, Anthony F, Karen H, Simha W, Lindsay P, Danielle D, Alex J, Hannah P, and Alex C. I'm so excited, man, because a lot of people on that list were like, Phil, I'm not even sure if I can do this. I'm not sure if what I'm doing is correct. I'm getting told all these different things. I'm not sure. And they pushed past that, trusted themselves, let go of everything. They just were focused on doing their 100% best and let go of the rest and coasted to the process of being able to do everything that they thought they would. Walked in the exam, kicked it directly in the chest, got the job done, and did not let anything step inside of their way. And if you passed your exam as well and you want to let me know, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. And you're like, Phil, I want to rep and rock with you as well. How can I do that? I'm new to your process. What does it even look like, man? The easiest way to do that is the Sunday study groups. They're every single Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And they are paid sessions, but they're easy ways to get connected. One, to me, to the process, and 3, a community that is there to build you up, not take something from you, but actually pour something back into your process that is meeting you directly where you're at. And if you're like, Phil, what are the next Sunday study groups? They are as follows: 516 practice questions. So we're going over the 5-step practice that I recommend every single person to utilize. So the 5-step process, going through each question, because I know a lot of times people are like, Phil, I know you talk about the acronym, but that doesn't work with every single question. Well, the 5-step process does, because it allows for you to be able to navigate the process without getting lost in the woods and everything, as well as going over 15 practice questions. And if you've been in a previous practice question session, these are going to be new questions. And I always plant the seed, and we'll say it during the session if you're there. Do not walk into that as a session and expect to get 100% correct. Why? Because I write the questions in a way that are going to push you and mold you into the best possible version of yourself. And I know a lot of times people will write questions, they're not to the caliber of the actual exam, and then you walk into the exam and get blindsided and say, what the heck? So I write the questions so that way you are building yourself up, pushing yourself to the next level, and that way you're getting defeated during practice, so that way you can walk into the exam and defeat the questions in there rather than destroying questions in practice and getting defeated in the actual exam. 523 meds and DSM-5, so going over the medications and coupling them with the disorders that they can be associated with in order to make studying both medications and the DSM-5 a little bit easier. 530 human developmental theories. 6.6 ethics, so going through the code of ethics, going over the difference between referrer versus supervision, what's the difference between subpoena versus court order, etc. 6.13 client intervention, so going over the individual client modalities as well as the family modalities. 6.27 acronym and practice questions. Then if you're like, Phil, what about 6.20? I am going to be taking a Sunday off. I'm going to be having a wedding, not me personally, but my girlfriend's sister is having a wedding, so I am taking a Sunday off. I know. I try to do every single Sunday, but you're going to miss me there. So if you're wondering, why is there not a session? That's the reason why. But the next one is 627, acronym and practice questions. So we'll be going over each level of the acronym, how we can apply it to different questions, the 5-step process that I recommend for people to utilize while breaking down the questions, as well as going over practice questions as well. And if you're like, Phil, I'm planning to attend the 516 session, and I'm not sure if I would be able to attend the 627 session, because are they going to be the same practice questions? They are not going to be the same practice questions. Why? Because I'm going to be writing new questions for that session, because I don't believe in giving you regurgitated questions, so that way it's like you can rep and rock as much as you possibly want to. So they will be different questions, but as I said before, do not go into that session and expect to get every single one correct. But if you go into that session and do not do well, do not convince yourself that you're not ready for the exam, because the only thing that dictates whether you can pass or fail the exam is the actual exam that you take that day. And then 7-4, family. So we'll be going over the family modalities and group therapy. So the different processes and things that you should keep in mind when looking at groups within questions. And each session has practice questions at the end of them, so that way you can gauge your competency and comfortability with the concepts. And if you want any information about those, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com, or click the link down below in the description. It'll take you to my calendar. You'll be able to sign up on your own. And if you're like, Phil, are you still offering individual tutoring? Yes, I am. My schedule still is pretty hairy, but I did take it to the barber and it's getting a lot less full. So do keep in mind that my schedule does book out 4 to 5 weeks in advance. So if your exam's prior to that, you can send me an email at berda24@gmail.com, and I can put you on the tutoring waiting list just in case I get any cancellations. But if your exam is after that, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com, or click the link down below in the description, and you'll be able to sign up, connect with me directly, go through practice questions, go over different topics, whatever you want. And I supply all the information, and it always blows my mind when people are like, Phil, do I have to bring my own stuff? No. Why? Because that's what I'm here for. But if you're bringing the information and questions to other people and they're just reviewing with you, their purpose is almost not needed. But I digress. So if you want to connect with me on an individual level, just send me an email at berda24@gmail.com, or click the link down below in the description, as well as the one-day course is coming back. The one-day course is coming back, and the one-day course is coming back. The next one-day course is on May 29th, Saturday, from 11 a.m. Eastern time until whenever they kick us out Eastern time, and they can't really kick us out because I'm the host, and I don't really put a parameter on any of the study groups, because they go as long as they need to, because all of the sessions go over the content, they go over practice questions, and there's a question and answer segment where you can directly connect with me. But if you're like, Phil, get back to the one-day course. The one-day course is the most jam-packed thing that I can give you guys, because you have me for an extended amount of time, and it goes over a large array of different topics. So the topics that we go over in the one-day course, and the one-day course has been the most successful thing, because people take it and they're surprised, because they're like, I took this other course, or I did this, but this makes so much more sense, and you can watch the recording back afterwards. So the one-day course contains the tips I find most helpful for people to walk into the exam and pass it, goes over the most common reasons why people fail the exam, because the best way to not make the same mistakes that people have made in the past is to review what the different strategies and techniques were, so that way we can identify ways to combat them, to have you walk in and do different things, to be mindful of things that other people were not as mindful of. Also breaking on different topics: subpoena versus court order, referral versus supervision, community interventions, the medications, personality disorders, bipolar 1 versus bipolar 2, schizophrenia spectrum. We're going to be going over operant conditioning. We'll go over the acronym. We'll go over the 5-step process that I recommend people to utilize to walk in the exam and kick it directly in the chest and get the job done. And the icing on the cake is going to be breaking down 25 practice questions. And if you're like, Phil, are these going to be the same questions that we talked about before? They are not, because I write new questions for all the sessions that I do. And a big thing that you have to keep in mind on the practice questions is, do not expect to be perfect, but attempt to gain and learn the different strategies and techniques that you utilize in order to get the questions correct and or incorrect, to be more mindful of when you walk into the exam. Because again, I make these questions as difficult as I possibly can, not to make you angry at me, but for you to learn and challenge yourself and be challenged in environments outside of the exam rather than walking into the exam and feeling challenged, because a lot of people that rep and rock with me feel more comfortable and confident during the exam because the questions that are in the exam are not often as hard as the ones that I conduct and or present to you guys. And if you want any information about the one-day course or the study groups that I do, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. But if you're like, Phil, my exam is before then, it is possible to get a previously recorded one-day course and or any of the Sunday study groups that I've done. So if you want any information about that, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. As well as, for those that do not know, Audible's continued to partner with me on my YouTube videos and my podcast. So if you want to support me as well as support them, go to my Audible affiliate link at audibletrial.com/fill-in-the-gaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial. It's 100% easiest way to support me, and it costs you absolutely nothing. And if you're like, Phil, I always hear you talk about Audible. What is Audible? Audible is an easy way to get information and gain knowledge on the go. So if you want to become the best possible version, just like I want to, every single second of my day, Audible is an easy way to do that. So if you have a busy schedule, you're still able to obtain that information and knowledge because you can just pop it in your ears, listen to the information. So again, if you're an auditory learner, it's like 100% best tool that you can possibly do. And Audible is an easy way to supplement that. So if you want to support me as well as support them, go to my Audible affiliate link at audibletrial.com/fill-in-the-gaps. Sign up for 30-day free trial. It's the easiest way to do it. And from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single person that has done that already. And if you're like, Phil, I want to sign up for Audible and the 30-day free trial to help you out, but I'm not really sure what book to get, there are a couple books that I would recommend. The Alchemist, The Archer, The Power of Habit, and Outliers. Each of them have different lessons that can help you both professionally and personally to become the best possible version of yourself. I know I definitely utilize a lot of the lessons that are in those books in my personal life, and has definitely helped me out 100%. And like I said, if you want to help me as well as help them, go to my Audible affiliate link at audibletrial.com/fill-in-the-gaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial. And if you've been finding my videos helpful, do me a small favor. Hit the thumbs up button down below next to the title, as well as comment one thing that you've been doing for yourself, one positive thing, because you don't know how many people read the comments. Me personally, I read the comments, and some days those comments get me through difficult times and show me that what I'm doing is actually helping people, because whether you know it or not, a lot of things that people go through, they don't really understand when they're going through it until they're outside of it. So a big thing that has been going through my mind is starting to respect yourself and your process. And a lot of times people are like, well, I respect myself. I have self-esteem. I'm doing all of the right things. And it's like, you may be, but are you respecting your process? And what that looks like is when things do not go how you want them to, how are you responding? Are you open to learning the information? Are you closed off, challenging, becoming defensive, and fighting tooth and nail to resist the situation because it's too painful? But if you take the P out of pain and put a G, it's gain. So if you want to gain things, you may have to reframe your pain in a way that is going to be productive for you. So that is where not every single thing that we go through, we want to go through, but you have to start viewing the situation differently. So if you're like, Phil, I keep getting all these questions incorrect. This person's telling me that I should reschedule. I'm telling myself I should reschedule, but the proof is not there for you to reschedule. You almost have to sit yourself down and say, I need to start respecting myself, the process, the progress, and my situation, embrace my pain in order to gain things out of this situation that I would not have gotten if I were to be hard on myself, if I were to beat up myself, if I were to compare my process to somebody else's, because I do not want to be where I'm at, because it is too painful sometimes to embrace the situation. But if you reframe your pain, it'll help you gain more than if you go through something, don't take anything from it, and just hide from the process, because either it's fighting your ideology, either it's fighting the expectations that you had for yourself, because at the end of the day, beautiful things take time to develop. Things do not happen all the time at an immediacy. And that's where you have to sit yourself down and say, I don't need that immediate gratification. I need to respect the process. I need to respect the opportunities I get. And I will not let my achievements and the things that I accomplish blind me from the things that I wish that I would have done, or where you are right now at a moment in time. You were begging to be here, to be in the process. You were begging to have the experience you have. You were begging to have those relationships. You were begging to even be complaining about the things that exist in your situation. So that's where, if you do not respect yourself or the process or the progress that you've made, you are almost taking yourself outside of where you're at and taking away from yourself. And again, you have to reframe that pain in order to gain something from it. And it may be only a sliver of gain, but do not give up on yourself, because a lot of times people will cling to other people will cling to other materials, people will cling to the thought, or people that will almost like pacify the process or give them the response that they want to hear, when sometimes you have to hear the most difficult information or things in order to make a change. Why? Because we are stubborn as people, and we do not like people looking at our face and saying, you aren't doing exactly what you said you wanted to do on the timeline day that you said that you wanted to do it on. Or you have to look yourself in the face and say, I need to adjust my timeline. I am stubborn. I will fight myself. I will degrade myself, but I will not build myself up. Or you look at your previous accomplishments or the previous opportunities that you had and say, why aren't I here today? And it's because there are things in today that are going to take you further than where you can ever see yourself going. Why? Because we are too blinded about the moment and rob ourselves of the moment. We aren't mindful of the things that are happening on around us, but we want to see the things that are further out of earsight, and you have to be willing to sit yourself down and say, I need to start respecting my process and myself and see the beauty in situations rather than seeing the detrimental situations or the things that didn't go right or watering myself out in order to take myself out of the situation. So that's something that's been on my mind, and I've had to tell myself, like, Phil, you need to continue doing everything that you said that you wanted to do, but I will not accept beating myself down to get it done. I need to assess and address and look at my pain and say, what are things that you can gain from this situation? And is giving yourself a break today better than pushing and driving yourself into situations that are going to be less productive and that you're not actually mindful in, and that you're not giving 100%? Because if you're not willing to give 100% to a situation, you might as well not do it. And then you're like, Phil, didn't you just say that I need to find the beauty in every situation and that as long as I'm there, I'll get something? You might, but I would rather have you withdraw yourself out of the situation, recharge yourself, and then launch yourself into a situation and be 100% you in that situation rather than faking until you make it. You need to practice until you perform, and sometimes you have to practice in the dark in order to shine in the light brighter than you ever have. And I appreciate every single one of you that is repping and rocking with me. If you need anything from me, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. I hope to see every single one of you guys in the Sunday study groups, individual tutoring, the one-day course, or in any capacity, because there is going to be a free study group coming up soon. And the rest of this video is me interacting with people that are struggling to pass their exams and helping them process and cope with test anxiety and depression related to lack of motivation and failing their exam, as well as helping people approach on how to study the code of ethics and having people that have passed their exams coming back in and sharing. And one of them was out of the field. And this, hear me out. Someone that came back and passed their exam to share was out of school for 22 years, failed the exam, waited 6 years, and then walked into the exam and kicked it directly in the chest to get the job done. So do not let your thought process of where you are rob you from where you need to be. So when you build yourself up, you will be up higher and more reinforced than if you're dragging yourself down, tearing yourself down, beating yourself up to not get to the next level. And like I said, I appreciate every single one of you guys. If you need anything from me, reach out. I'll try my best to help as much as I can. Continue trying to be better than you were who you were back in the day. I'll see you guys in the next video, and peace out, guys. Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin, and I want to share my experience of passing the LCSW exam. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
How is it going?
It's going good. Thank you so much for having me on here today.
It is my pleasure. So tell everyone where you're from and how I was helpful.
Okay. I'm from Natchitoches, Louisiana, but I actually live in the Baton Rouge area currently. I've attempted the test 4 times. I finally passed it in July, just last month. On the very same day that I passed my test, I also lost my job, just due to COVID. But I feel like when I lost my job, that just gave me like fuel just to like go after it and pass that test. And that's what happened.
So what was your process of leading up to you passing the exam? Like, what'd you do? What'd you find helpful? And what was it like to take the exam during COVID?
Um, let's see. I used a lot of different study materials. I definitely used like your podcast, your YouTube videos where you're breaking down the questions. Like some of the stuff that you said in some of your previous podcasts and videos, you've talked about like answer the question as if, in the here and now. That really helped a lot. Um, One of the things that I remember you telling someone that struggled with anxiety is you gave the Wizard of Oz scenario. Uh, I really liked that a lot because you helped me like think of the test as just a test and not like let it get to me so intensely. That really helped as well.
So if you were looking at somebody and they came to you and was like, Caitlin, I'm getting ready to take the exam. I'm feeling unmotivated. I'm scared of this thing. My job's on the line. What would you tell them?
I would just tell them, study as much as you can. Like, just don't give up. Do not give up. You know, I would tell them to like pamper themselves the day before, like do whatever they can to relax and enjoy like their day. And then after the test, they have something fun that they can look forward to, regardless if they pass it or not. But just don't give up and just go after it.
Since you're on the other side of it, was it like the Wizard of Oz? So alluded to a little bit of that when you heard me say that and was like, whoa, that really resonated with you. Like now that you're on the other side of it, what is your perspective of that?
I think a lot of the time, we get ourselves so like we just get so anxious thinking about, what's going to happen if I don't pass this test. Like we're so scared of it. And whenever I think about, that test is just a test. It's not going to define me as a social worker, as a person. It's just something I need to get past so that I can go towards the next chapter of my life. And it honestly have to say, like when I passed, a tremendous burden was lifted because, this is something that I've focused on 4 different times. It took me a year and a half to finally pass it once I set on that course of trying to pass it. But once I passed it, it just like a burden had been lifted.
And what was it like for you to do it 4 times? Like, what was it like to pick yourself up each time and then have to walk in and face the exam again?
Well, I'm not gonna lie, like the first 3 times that I failed it, I felt defeated, especially after the third time. I was very defeated because I was so confident. But I told myself, your family and your friends are gonna love you, regardless. They're gonna be there to support you, and they're gonna be right there behind you. That's one of the things that I remember. You've helped people with before, like the right people are gonna like be happy for you and support you. I really do feel like, I had things to look forward to after each time that I would attempt the test. I had like something to look forward to, like with friends or family, just to like cheer myself up and just remind myself, these people are here, they're behind you, they're here to support you. the support really helped.
And isn't it amazing now to say like all of that worry I once had and all of those negative things that I was telling myself didn't even come to fruition?
Right. Yes. It didn't. I mean, I just one of the things that I've heard from, a few of my friends and family is, they just respected my drive just to achieve that goal. But it's a goal that, I wanted to achieve for such a long time. And it's like, I'm just going to keep going after it because even though I failed it these 3 times, I'm going to pass it eventually. I will pass it eventually. I just got to keep going after it, keep studying, keep pushing. But I need to take care of myself as well. And so self-care is a huge thing that I do. I keep it. That's one of my things that I do very often, and that's all a part of just like getting prepared for the test and taking care of myself after I failed it.
And that's the amazing part for me is to see a transformation from somebody that's like, yo, I'm not even sure if I can do this, or like, I'm not sure if I can get through this, to, wow, now that I'm on the other side, all of these things that led up to those attempts are now going to take me further in the field, because
Right,
now I know if I have a rough day at work or if something doesn't go well for me, I'm going to practice self-care. I'm going to keep trying at it. I'm going to take it at a different angle. But at the end of the day, nothing is going to stop me from getting to where I need to go.
right, right. And honestly, I loved my job, and it was really quite devastating. Having gotten let go due to COVID that morning, and then several hours later, I was just honestly was extremely fired up. I was like, I'm gonna pass this thing. I'm gonna do it, and then I'm gonna feel amazing after because it would have felt horrible if I would have lost my job and failed the test the same day. But that did not happen. I think that actually helped in a way. It just made me even more determined.
Even through adversity, you were able to capitalize on that. And now
Yeah.
you're going to propel yourself further than your old job was to get to a
Right,
better job.
right. And I do feel like everything happens the way it's supposed to. Like I felt like I lost that job because I have something even better coming, especially because I passed that test. And if I wouldn't have gotten let go from that job, I would not probably not even, be on the path that I'm on now. And that feels great. So I'm hopeful. But I just want everybody to know, just do not give up. Do not let that test, define you. Like you are a social worker for a reason. You have your passion, go after it.
And if you had one more piece of advice for people that are still struggling or feeling unmotivated or they're not sure where to go, what would you tell them right now?
I will say this. I remember one more thing that you have said in your videos and your podcast. You have to want this for you. And that, I really feel like each time I failed this test, I wanted it even more. I had that desire just to overcome this even more. And more I took it, the more I wanted to do it for myself. And that really resonated with me and stayed with me all through this time. You have to want it for you and do it for you.
Awesome. Well, keep prioritizing yourself, keep accomplishing your goals. And if I can be helpful in any way, just let me know. I appreciate you coming back and sharing your experience.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you for all that you do.
It is my pleasure. Hi, I failed my exam by 1 point. Pre-COVID, I'm unmotivated. Where do you suggest starting to study? The Don Apgar book, How to Develop a Plan to Study, Then Review. So when you fail your exam, there are a couple of things that I often recommend people to do to make sure that they're being objective about the situation and not so much subjective. And what do I mean by that? Because way too many times when you fail a situation or a situation doesn't go where you think it should go, you start inwardly beating yourself up or starting to get subjectively motivated by this. So you're getting very emotional about the situation, but it's not in a productive manner. And you're not always looking directly where you need to be looking. So if you fail the test by 1 point, my first point would be that you were so close that you almost needed to do the same exact thing and expect a different result. And why do I say that? Because a lot of times people are like, well, the same thing over and over and over is insanity. It is, but you're not taking the same questions over and over and over. It is a different exam. So every exam attempt that you take, you almost have to view it as a new opportunity to get to where you want to go. So that's where you have to be very intentional, deliberate, and motivated beyond your situation. So yes, it needs to be about you, but how are you being unmotivated, or how is you being unmotivated right now leading you to getting into the exam and passing and going where you want to go? Because if you do not have a goal after your exam, it is going to be very easy for you to want to give up and quit and not do what you need to do. So when you fail your exam, so once you grieve and process what it was like to not get to where you want to go, because whether you know it or not, it's almost a grieving process after you fail the exam, because you have to let the opportunities that you want to happen die, and you have to grieve the death of where you wanted to be, start accepting where you're at and saying, what changes that I need to make in my situation and how do I get there? So my biggest thing for people to start developing a plan after failing the exam is, first, how did you study? So if you've reached out to me, that is my first question, is how did you study? What were the materials that you utilized? Were they helpful for you? Did they lead to your learning style? Were they unhelpful for you? And what do I mean by unhelpful? Being unhelpful means that it didn't help you comprehend the information, or it did not lead you to feel confident about navigating the answer process while in the exam. Because whether you know it or not, the exam is not just knowing the information. It's not being able to memorize or reiterate or do lectures on the information. It's about, how can I see this information in a question, pick it out, pull it out, and apply it in a systematic way that is not me just jumping to answers or jump into buzzwords, because way too many times people will jump to buzzwords rather than wanting to navigate the process and get to the answer in an effective manner in a process that actually works for them. So after you navigate, how did you study? If your materials were unhelpful for you or not as productive as you wanted them to be within your prep, then you need to replace them, not just with anything, not based on what someone else is suggesting for you, not what your neighbor thinks you should do, not what this other person thought you should do, what you actually think you need to do for yourself to help yourself get to the next level and to get more confident about being able to break down and navigate the answering process. So after you do that, and how do I recommend doing that, is doing it based on your learning style. So you need to find people and information and things that are going to teach you and push you and challenge you and mold you into the best possible version of yourself. So that way, when you walk into the exam, it's not a question of, am I going to pass? It's, is the question that I'm about to see going to be able to handle the pain that I'm about to deliver to them? I'm going to do the process that I practice over and over and over and over and over. It's going to be wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. Why? Because when you practice how you're about to perform, when the performance comes, you are going to be in better shape than if you just started practicing the day of, or if you haven't been challenged in your preparation and you've been killing exams and you've been shooting for the percentages. Well, I got 85% on this thing, and this program said I had to get 75%. I do not care about if the people I'm working with get the answers right or wrong. I worry about how they get the answers right or wrong, because you cannot take the questions into the exam with you. You can only take the process and preparation and the steps that you took to get yourself comfortable in the answering process in the exam with you. So from there, you need to connect yourself to things that are going to challenge and mold you throughout the process. So if you're beating up on the questions that you have based on the study information that you have, you need to push yourself to navigate the questions different and say, if these other answers were the answer, what would the question have to say? Or if I'm already knowing the answer because I've been doing these questions over and over and over, can I explain it to somebody else how I got there? So those are how you're going to be able to improve on your preparation, is change the way that you're doing it, but knowing that you were close, you were 1 point away. You were one less second guess. You were one less overlook. You were one less jump to conclusion away from being on the other side and not even asking this question at all. So way too many times, and this is an unpublished theory that I have, is people that fail the exam by 10 or less blame themselves, and people that fail the exam by 10 or more blame the exam and say, well, this is just a business and people are doing this and this is unfair. If I knew I had to take an exam to be a social worker, I wouldn't have done this. That's just you making an excuse for you not being able to do the process, because after you pass the exam, you're going to stand up proud and be like, I'm glad I'm a social worker. I'm glad that this is in here, because if this was not a place, we would not have respect, we would not have prestige, we would not have anything within our field, because anyone could walk up and claim that they were a social worker at any capacity and indirectly harm a client without even knowing what the heck they're supposed to be doing with and for the situation. So that's how you're going to get yourself motivated, is how am I studying? How do I challenge myself? How do I mold myself? So almost humbling yourself to say, I'm not sure what I'm doing is correct. I need to find myself getting answers correct based on the fact that I understand how I got there, not just being like, yep, I got it correct. I feel good about myself. I'm killing the game. I'm doing everything that I need to do, because every single time that you feel good about the situation, you take your foot off the pedal and you don't keep challenging, pushing, and molding yourself because you thought you've made it. And the only thing that can tell you if you made it or not is if you pass the actual exam. You can walk into any practice question, you can walk into any practice exam, and it could still walk in and punch you in the mouth because you failed the actual exam. So that's where you have to get yourself wrapped around, is what changes do I need to make to reach it to the next level? And if I feel confident and comfortable, how do I speed up the process of my answering process to make sure that I don't run out of time when I'm in the exam? And so that way I can make it raw and comfortable and as beautiful as I possibly can when in there. So that's how you can get yourself back motivated, is understanding that the situation isn't over and that I still have the skills and talents that I utilized last time, but I need to push myself to make it better and make myself feel more comfortable when in an uncomfortable situation. So you're helping to put the fire out rather than pouring gas on the fire based on the fact that you don't think that you can handle the situation at that moment. So that's how I'd answer that question in particular. What changes are there because of COVID? So from my knowledge, the only changes that are evident are, one, scheduling's a pain in the tail. You're not really able to schedule an exam, and if it is able to be scheduled, you're scheduling super far away, as well as you're going to have to wear a mask throughout the entire thing. You're going to have to be covered. So if you're not wearing a mask in your preparation and during your practice exams, it's going to be like a slap in the mouth when you have to put it on. So that is where you want to make the situation as comfortable as you possibly can by practicing how you're going to perform. So if you know you're going to have to wear a mask, as long as it's not medically harmful to you during the exam, then you're going to want to be able to do that. So that way, when you walk in there, you're practicing how it is going to be looking like. But other than wearing the mask and the scheduling, there is not a whole lot of changes to the exam. The exam length is still the same. The amount of time is still the same, and all those different things. So there's not a whole lot of different changes to my knowledge with COVID related to the exam, besides the scheduling and the necessity for the mask. Yeah. So let's move to the next one. Good afternoon. First time attending. Scheduled to take the exam on 9/26/2020. I have serious anxiety about taking this exam. I have terrible type retaining information. Where should I start? How many hours should I study?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. How's it going? How's it going?
I'm fine. Thank you for asking. Yes, I was diagnosed with depression back in 2007. But anyway, I have a terrible time retaining information. If you ask me any question, I can answer it. If you have me write it in an essay form, I can do that. But when it comes to multiple choice, I have a really difficult time picking exactly what it should be, or I second guess myself a lot. And so, or sometimes I will completely blank out, like completely forget what I read or what number I'm on or anything. It's like, it's horrible. And I see as I get older, it seems like it's getting worse for me.
So what do you think are the changes you need to make to your preparation for you to be able to actually apply the information?
Well, I try to read the information and I try to rewrite it, and like whatever I read, I try to rewrite it to where I can understand it for myself. And I try to rewrite it as many times so I can at least try to retain some of it. But I don't know if it's because it's getting closer to the date that it seems like nothing is working for me. It's just like the anxiety gets worse and it triggers vertigo, which causes me to feel tired. So it's like everything just, I don't know. I just feel like I don't know where to start and how to not freak out other than to take medication.
What worries you so much about the exam?
Picking out the correct answer. That's my thing because I have the AppGuard book, and even the question that you put down, I chose D initially, and then I went and I was like, no, safety first. That's, so I'm always second guessing myself on things. So I don't know. To me, there's always two good answers in everything when it comes to the exams, even the practice exams.
So let me ask you this. What is your process of breaking down a question?
Ugh, I really don't have a process. I guess that's why I'm here, because I really don't have I can't really think of anything right now. Yeah, I can't really think of anything right now.
So when you're breaking down the question and selecting an answer, how are
Mhm.
you getting there initially before changing your answer?
Based on the question, like I would look at the question and try to pull certain words out of the question and then see which answer fits with the pieces that I've pulled out.
And at what point are you like, I didn't do this correctly, I need to change my answer?
Because to me, there's always two good answers. So, and that's the thing. I need to decipher which of these two good answers is the correct answer.
So what would it look like for you to, before you select your answer, compare the one that you think it is and the other one that you think it is back to the question to see which one connects better?
I don't know.
Well, that's what I would kind of recommend
Mhm.
is when you have an answer or you want to change your answer, make sure the question tells you to change your answer, not something that you read, not something that another program told you, but what did the actual question tell you at this given moment?
Okay. And I think also because I've been in the social work field for a couple of years, sometimes I tend to apply what I have done previously to the answers.
And how helpful has that been in your experience?
I don't know because I haven't taken the exam yet. I'm scheduled on the 26th. So I just been like doing practice exams and trying to study the AppGuard book as much as I can.
So my biggest recommendation and from working with people to pass their exams, adding your direct experience or examples from your direct experience to the exam is not a good idea.
Mhm.
And there's a difference between applying the knowledge that you've utilized in the field to the questions
Mhm.
rather than direct examples. And that is where a lot of times people will tell you, well, the exam is nowhere near my practice, or what I would do on the exam is nowhere near what I would do in practice. And I always challenge them and say, well, you would do and apply the knowledge that you would to that direct client, to this client, if they had the same presenting issues, but they do not have the same presenting issues. So staying in the question and allowing for the question to guide your answer is better than you jumping to what you think it should be based on your experience that you've had over the X amount of time that you've been in the field.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And if you have any other questions or anything, just send me an email.
I will. Thanks.
Yep. Take care of yourself.
You too.
What are we allowed to bring into the exam? Snacks and water. So that is where I'm not sure where a lot of times people hear that they can bring a lot of things into the exam with them, but I always compare the exam process to like a prison intake. Because you walk in, you show them that you can test, you show them who you are. Here's my ID. Here's another form of my ID. Okay, you want me to sign this form that says I'm a social worker and I'm allowed to take the exam? It's like, okay, bet. And then you move down and then you scan your palm prints. You scan your palm prints again. You take your picture and then they book you. Okay, they tell you to put everything in your locker. You're only able to have your license and your locker key on you. So you're not able to access your locker unless you have accommodations. And the accommodations have to come from a professional, such as the doctor or another mental health professional, such as a therapist or anything like that. But typically it's coming from a doctor. So if you do not have a medical condition or any other thing that would allow you, one, more time, two, access to your locker, three, any of those things, then you're not going to be able to bring anything in with you or be able to access your locker in any way, shape, or form. So keep that in mind, is you're not going to be able to do that unless you walk yourself outside of the exam, and the only water that you're going to be able to get is from the drinking fountain in the hallway. So being mindful of that is you're not able to bring anything into the exam with you in any way, shape, or form, because they're going to check everything. They're going to check your hair. They're going to check your glasses if you wear them to make sure you're not recording. They're going to tell you to take watches off. They're going to tell you to take bracelets off. They are going to check everything because they don't want you to cheat. So we're not allowed to bring anything into the exam with you. So being mindful of what you're supposed to be looking at and being prepared for that. So if you've never taken the exam, be prepared to be stripped of every single thing that you have on you besides that license and the locker key. It's not a joke. That it's kind of like an intake to a correctional facility. But if this is your second attempt or multiple attempts after this, you know that the process is pretty rigorous, but you're not able to bring anything in. So do not allow for any other programs or anything to tell you that you can, unless you have accommodations, and then that's a different story. So you're not able to do anything like that. Where do I start studying on the Code of Ethics? So this is a very tricky question. Why? Because the Code of Ethics is very thick and it's very long and it's very difficult to break down. But how I would start is piece by piece. This is like an elephant. You take a piece, take a bite, you leave it for later. But I also tell people to break it down into pieces. And what do I mean by that? Because if you look at the Code of Ethics, it's broken down into multiple different pieces, but there are also themes within it. You don't have to memorize word for word for word for word. You just have to simply be able to digest the information and apply it to a question. So are you able to identify and do a relationship, conflict of interest? What is the right to confidentiality? What is the protect or duty to warn? What does the terrorist off look like? What is our duty to our coworkers? What is the duty to the profession? So being able to look it down and break it down, but again, not memorizing it. So how I would recommend starting to study the Code of Ethics is, how do you learn the Code of Ethics? Do you need to read it? Are you a visual? Do you need to take notes on it? Are you a tactile? Do you need auditory? Like, are you an auditory learner where you have to find a recording of the Code of Ethics? So finding your learning style is how I would recommend first starting. And then from there, chunking it piece by piece and not sitting down and attacking it like you're going to memorize a very, very long document unless you have photographic memory. So with anything, I would recommend starting with the things that you don't feel so comfortable with. So finding in the Code of Ethics, and as you're going through it, saying, do I know this? Okay, I know this. Okay, so I'm going to throw that piece of information to the side. Okay, I don't know as much about this piece of it, so I'm going to study more focused on this. Okay, why did this look foreign to me? Okay, I'm going to move on to the next thing and then continue going. So making sure it's a fluid process and not something where you just want to be doing what you need to be doing and getting yourself like thrown off and into a tailspin. So when in doubt, just make it more manageable for you. And if you feel overwhelmed, you may be trying to accomplish too much too fast. So that's where you need to be careful within the situation. So with anything beyond the Code of Ethics, but the Code of Ethics included, piecing it down to something that's more manageable for you. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, taking that expectation and pressure off of yourself. So that way it's a more comfortable situation than a very uncomfortable, like, oh my God, I'm in a frantic state. It's more like, okay, I know this is a long thing and there's a lot of things on this exam, but I've done everything that I can up to this moment to prepare myself in the best way that I know how. So that's what I would recommend when breaking down the Code of Ethics. Helpful tips for taking the exam for the second time. I failed on 6/22 and I am scheduled again for 9/21. Needed 99 to pass. I scored 96.
Hello.
How's it going? How's it going?
Good. Yeah, so I failed 6/22 and I'm taking it again September 21st. And I don't know. I mean, it was super upsetting. I feel like I've kind of, since this session has started, I've kind of answered my own question to that. Like, it only took me, which is bad, but I checked out within like 2.5 hours. But so the question I want to ask is, I took the ASWB practice exam and I passed that by 7. So that like had me like ready to take the test. But when I took the practice one, I had gone back and changed answers and I remembered which ones I changed. And then I ended up getting them wrong. So on the real exam, I remember there being like probably like 5 questions that I literally did not know. So that was kind of scary. But I flagged a bunch, and then I don't know what came over me, but I just like checked out and I hit like finish or submit, whatever the end button is. And I didn't really review what I had flagged. So do you have any helpful hints? So on round 2, if I read a question and I don't know it at all, is it best to flag it and leave it unanswered? Or should I take a minute to try to like come up with an answer, but still flag it and then go back? Or what do you think is the best for that?
Okay, so knowing yourself, would you be okay with having an empty answer? And if you were tight on time, risking not answering that question?
Right. I think what I did with the first time is, even if I didn't know it, I answered it to what I thought. But then what got me was not going back and reviewing all the ones flagged. Like, to be honest, I'm so angry. Like, I feel like I just like threw away the $230, but I feel like the ones that I had flagged, I didn't go back to read for some reason. And there could have been like 15 or 20 that I had flagged. But in my mind, I told myself that I had answered them, but I don't know why I didn't go back to review them. But I think maybe because like I said, it only took me like 2.5 hours. You know, it's not like it was like I had 30 minutes left and I had 30 unanswered questions.
So my biggest recommendation would be settling it for yourself prior to walking in. So what likely happened is you got like scarred from the practice exam of saying like, wow, I changed these answers and I shouldn't do that during the real exam. And then you stayed to the commitment that you made to yourself.
Right.
So my recommendation for people is take every question like you're not going to be able to look back at it. But if you're at the capacity where you're burning through questions and have 2.5 hours left,
right,
you could have pretty much took this thing again. So I would answer the question to the best of your ability, step aside of like, I'm going to know every question, because there's going to be questions when you walk into the exam that you have no clue. But I always tell people the answer is on the page. So don't get a panic moment of like, holy smokes, pick the answer that you think it is. So that way, when you go back to it, which could rectify what happened last time, is if I do not see something jump off of the page or like slap me in the back of the head, I'm not going to change the answer. I'm going to be okay with it, but I am going to review the ones. So that way, when I walk out of the exam, I cannot say that I did not give it 100% of my effort.
Okay. I like that. Thank you.
And it's my pleasure. And it's okay not to be okay.
Right.
It's okay to be in the exam and say, holy smokes, I don't know this one. Just be like, yo, I can get 45 to 54 wrong anyway. This is just one of them, but I'm not going to channel my energy on those. But I'm also not going to allow myself the due diligence and comfortability of being able to do what I wanted to do based on something that is not the actual exam.
Right. But I think what got me is like what you said, like with the practice exam, I learned from that where I changed answers, and what I had originally had correct, I chose the wrong answer. So I think I have it in my head where during, in September when I take it, if I read it and I'm not sure, but like, I'm like, oh, I think that's it. And I answer it, but I keep it flagged and then I review it at the end. And then what if I'm in that like same predicament where the answer was B and I had, B, but I had it flagged. So I changed it to D and then it was wrong, even though I won't know that. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like failing by 3. I mean, I don't know.
You did everything correct besides allowing yourself the due diligence to second check yourself, not second guess yourself. And there's a huge difference between second checking and second guessing. Second checking is what we need to do as humans because we're not perfect entities. So second checking is checking to see if what you had done is what you intended to do. And if that's okay, you just pass it on to the next one. Second guessing is, yep, I had no freaking clue and I need to change my answer because I don't have the confidence of being able to answer this type of question.
Right.
So that's where you have to honor yourself and say, what do I need to do in preparation? So that's where you seem like a type A person where you need a plan and you like to be organized and have everything together
100%.
prior. So that's where for people like you, because that's not me. I don't mean to like stigmatize or like generalize, but that is not me. So people that are similar to you need to have a plan of what they need to see and do for themselves prior to walking in the exam. So what do you need to do when you walk in on the 21st to feel comfortable, confident, and have no stone left unturned for you to walk out and say, I gave everything that I had, and it wasn't for lack of effort. It was, this exam just got me, and there are things in life that just simply will get you.
Right, right. I also have just one question. Do you know if the practice ASW exam, like there's only one? Or do you recommend that I was planning, obviously to take it again, like the week before? Should I do that? Should I not? Because I took it like the first week of June. Do you think it would still be helpful?
So it is the same exam.
Okay.
And I know that because I presented at the NASW Michigan conference, and there was an ASWB representative, which
Okay.
a lot of people were asking me, Phil, I heard there was another version. So I walked up, I introduced myself. Hey, my name is Phil. I make videos to help people pass the exam. They instantly kind of like clammed up and was like, you're trying to get information to like steal and like sell. And I was like, yo, I'm not that person. I'm just trying to help other people. So my question is, you guys sell a product, and if someone has already bought that product, if they get it again, is it going to be a different version? And the lady initially said, yeah, there's 2 versions. And I was like, okay, well, tell me how they can get the second version. Because I have a lot of people that would really love this. And then she called corporate and was like, is there a second version? And they're like, there used to be, now there is not. So if you get the exam, it is going to be the same exact one, but from the sounds of it, you want to do it. You just don't want the same thing to happen to you what happened back then.
Mm-hmm.
So from my perspective, I would walk into that practice exam because I know you likely want to do it just to see where you're at, but do not fall into the same cardinal sin, because my recommendation to take the practice exam does not fall on if you're quote unquote ready. There are 2 reasons I recommend people take the practice exam. The first reason is to see if you can sit there for 4 hours and stay focused, and what do you need to do to control your anxiety and to get yourself through that 4 hours. Because 4 hours is not something a lot of people are prepared to do. So that's the first reason. The second reason is to see if the routine that you identified for yourself is going to be possible and for you to be able to execute it when your back is against the wall. And that, I think, is the reason that you would likely want to take it, is what do I need to do this time to change and rectify the past? But before you do it, if you decide to do it, you need to sit yourself down and say, I did everything I could that first try. I'm not going to blame myself. I need to forgive myself, because if I leave this first exam in the back of my head, it is now going to make me walk into that second exam, feel triggered, feel immobilized, and have a vengeance in my heart that is not going to be positive for me able to walk in there and have a clear head.
Right. Thank you.
It is my pleasure. And if you need anything in the meantime, just drop me a shout. But I think you have everything that you need. It's just a matter of believing that you do, and that your previous attempt doesn't define who you are, because you've already identified changes and have been implementing them. So you're not the same person anymore.
Thanks.
It is my pleasure. I've been a social worker for 22 years. I worked in various settings and abroad in London. When I returned from London in 2008, I realized I need the LCSW for better jobs. I paid for the exam, and at the last minute had to take it. Studied a week and failed by 17. I was devastated because I think I'm so smart. It took me 6 years to get true confidence to take it again. I've paid for the exam 2 other times and let it expire without taking it. I couldn't do it this time. I scheduled it and took the jump. I studied 6 weeks, attended 2 Phil's courses and 1 private tutoring session the night before, and I passed.
Hi.
What's up? What's up? What's up?
What's up? I rock with Phil.
So tell them who you are, where you're from, and how I was a part of your process.
Okay. My name is Sandy, and I'm from Georgia. Like you said, I worked for so many years doing social work and never really felt the need to have the other license. But coming back from London, I realized I was going to have to do something different if I wanted better jobs, and especially in Georgia where it's already low paying. And so I took the exam. I ran out of time. I paid for the exam. I actually had to do all of my supervision over again because they only go back 7 years. So being in social work so long, I had to do supervision over again because a lot of mine had expired. So once I did that, I finished in 2014 and I took the exam. I failed, but honestly, I didn't give it the time that it needed. But this time, I paid for it 2 other times, let that go because I just wasn't ready. I really didn't know what to do to prepare. And then I felt like being out of school so long was really working against me because I knew what I would do in my practice and working. But the exam seemed like it wanted, something different. And I didn't know what that was. And I'm terrible at multiple choice anyway. So I was really worried about that. And I've heard about you for a while, but I never bothered to look it up because I just thought, well, I don't know. I just said, well, I don't want to listen to somebody and I don't know if they know what they're doing or whatever. So, but this last time when I was studying, I had the AATBS. So I purchased a package from them, which gave me 5 practice tests, and I could take them each 3 times. So I was doing that in the 6 weeks that I was studying, but I still felt like I still wasn't doing well when I would take the practice exams. So I said, let me look up Phil and see what everybody's raging about. And I was so glad I did because I came in at a time when you were breaking down the question. And that really, I got it instantly. When you broke the question down, I understood it. I understood why I chose the answer and why I didn't choose the other answers. The light came on. And so I attended 2 of your study sessions, one for the breaking down of the questions. The other one was ethics. And I would have come to more, but I just didn't have time in the time that I prepared for study. So I took both of those courses with you. And then I finagled my way into a private tutoring session the night before my exam. And really, like, you gave me the confidence to take the exam. I love what you said about finding something that works for you and sticking to it. Not like buying, because I was thinking, okay, I could buy the therapy package, I could buy this. And I thought, I don't want to spend that money. And especially if I'm not going to pass anyway. So, because I spent about $1,000 the first time I took it with the hotel and study materials and everything. So I didn't want to do that to myself again. So I said, I'm going to stick with the package I have. I'm going to do my best with that. But once you broke the question down, I understood it. And then also the confidence that you gave me to know that I knew the right answer and not to doubt myself at all. And that was such a big part of it because I've been out of school for 22 years. There's things in the DSM. I was trained on the DSM-3 and here we are on the DSM-5 and I'm thinking there's so many changes. There's no way I'm going to learn them all. But you were like my own little cheerleader and you just said, be confident, this, you studied, be careful. And during our private tutoring session, you kept saying, we broke down questions. You kept saying, be careful, be careful. And I still got some of those wrong the night before. But I didn't let that shake my confidence because I said, I'm going to pass. I just kept telling myself, I'm going to pass. I'm going to pass. You can do it. You can do it. And so when I went into that room, while I'm taking the exam, I could hear your voice in my head saying, careful, careful. So when I was breaking down the question, I read through the answers. I looked back at the question, I eliminated 2, and then I picked the right answer. So, and I try to make a good, solid decision while taking while reading the question the first time, because going back for me, I thought was too dangerous to go back and, flag a lot of questions and go back and read. I thought I would just talk myself out of the right answer. So I wanted to make a good, solid decision the first time. And I did. And here I am, LICSW, finally, after 22 years. And I've been encouraging everyone to try your program, because especially if you're not good at test taking or multiple choice, but you taught me how to be calm and confident in what I knew, and it worked. And so here I am. I'm grateful. I'm happy to come back and tell everybody that I rock with you.
I really, really appreciate you coming back and sharing your experience. It's wild, like when people are like, yo, I really, really want to share how it was helpful for me. But if you were talking to somebody and they're like, yo, I'm not even really sure I want to take this. I don't think I can do this. I'm like drowned in materials. I've been out of the field so long, I don't even know I can pass this. What would you say to them?
I would say that you obtained a degree from an accredited school that allows you to take this exam. You couldn't have passed those courses if you didn't know. And we teach people all the time to be confident in themselves. We encourage our clients to, recognize their self-worth and know that they're worth something. And we have to use that for ourselves. No matter what the circumstances. I have a little boy that's 12. He's had a liver transplant. He has profound autism. He's nonverbal. He's in pull-ups. My dad died. My sister had cancer. All of that happened before I took, just a year or so before my exam. So I had a lot of obstacles in the way, but I just kept my confidence. And when I ran into your program, I was so glad that I did, because I think if I didn't, I probably would have failed, because I didn't know how to break the question down. I had taken it before, and to be honest, I didn't understand the questions when I was taking it the first time. I was just flying by the seat of my pants. I was surprised that I only failed by 17. But I would tell people, never, ever give up. You have done the work. You got through this program. They don't just pass out master's degrees to anybody. So you did the work, and you know it, and just be confident in that. When I went in the room, the only thing I wrote on the paper was my name and LICSW behind it. And then as I was taking the exam, my mind just kept wandering, and I thought about what you said: focus, focus, focus. So I said, I'm worried about my phone ringing, if my little boy's okay, but I said, nothing is going to matter in 4 hours. You can focus for 4 hours and get this done. And that's what I did. Every time my mind wandered, I brought it back, and I just focused on what I was doing at the time I was doing it. And if I got nervous, I took the pad and I wrote, you can do this, you know it. I just kind of pep talked myself, with little tidbits. And here I am. And I'm so glad it's behind me.
And isn't it wild that it was difficult for you to sacrifice for 4 hours based on the fact that other people could need you? And then you put that aside, dedicated 4 hours of your life to now dedicate your life to the other people that needed you, that you were worried about not being taken care of. Now you're able to take care of them for the rest of your life.
Yes. Yeah. It's a wonderful thing. And we're as caregivers and social workers, we always put other people first. We always put people first. And as a mom, you're going to put your child first. That's what it's instilled in you to do that. But he's okay for 4 hours, and he was just fine, and even if he wasn't, there was nothing I could do to stop a process that happens. But, I thought for 4 hours, it can be about me for 4 hours, and I can knock this thing out. It's for him. It's for my family. My mom, who's now a widow, I can help her with things because I'm in a better situation. And so right now I'm just taking other courses to kind of refresh myself, to be responsible. If I do dabble with the private practice, I just wanted to get up to date on the new the new interventions and new techniques. And so I'm taking courses for anxiety and EMDR. And so I'm just lining up things to get myself in the position for the next opening of the job that I want. So that's where
Awesome.
we.
And if I can be helpful at all in any of that process, just let me know. Like I said, from the bottom of my heart, it's really awesome to have you come back and share your experience, because it just lights it up and gets me more motivated to help more people. Because when you help one person, it just changes an entire family and allows for that person to then see that even though they've been through adversity, difficult things and difficult processes, that now they can make the process a little easier based on the fact that they just killed it.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many inboxes I've had from friends that have gone to school with me who also have been in that situation, have not passed, and were afraid to take it again. And they've reached out to me so many times and said, thank you for sharing your testimony about how you passed. And it's encouraged me. So I have one friend that actually went and signed up to take her LMSW again after 20 something years, because she failed it and she hasn't been working in social work really because she couldn't pass that exam. And so now she's motivated to do it because of my testimony of how I didn't let it deter me this time.
Isn't that wild how you don't even know that what you're doing to better yourself is actually making other people want to be better based on the fact that the things that you think are quote unquote normal to do are amazing and blow people's mind, and then blow up and allow for them to become better versions of themselves.
Right. I'm grateful.
And like I said, if I can be helpful at all, just let me know. But
Absolutely.
again, thank you so much for coming back.
You're so welcome. And thank you for everything that you did. And I know you do a lot. You do a lot of study, you do a lot of tutoring sessions, you do so much, and you have your full-time job. But just giving of yourself to do what you're doing is a blessing to a lot of people. And so I just want to commend you on doing that and encourage you, like Eric Thomas would, the hip hop preacher. Yeah, my friend, to keep going. You're really helping a lot of people, and your reward will come someday.
And it's my pleasure. And thank you so much for the kind words, because even through all the thick of it, it's like we're our own worst critic. So when other people are like, yo, this really helped me, you don't even realize the things that you're doing. So you just keep doing the amazing things that you're doing as well.
Yes, thank you so much.
How can you remain positive after failing several times? So this is very, very tricky, especially in a profession that overcoming obstacles is almost the norm for other people. But when it comes to us, we're our own worst critics, and we try to demean ourselves in the fact that we're comparing ourselves to other people when we need to be growing and watering our own self to blossom into what we need to be doing at this moment. So my biggest recommendation to remain positive after failing, whether it's in this exam, whether it's you're trying to do something that you've never done, whether it's starting something or you're nervous to do something, always reminding yourself that you're likely not the first person that has done that, and there's assistance in that. But if you feel alone, identify what is going to get you out of the hole, or get the motivation and energy to want to climb out of the situation that you're in to get into a better situation. And for those that know me very well, or have watched my videos or listened to previous podcast episodes, know that my motivation stems entirely on making my family the best possible version that they can be. So every day that I feel unmotivated, or every day that I have an off day, or every day that I don't feel like making a video, or every day that I don't feel like doing any of the things in my life, I always sit myself down and say, you can feel this way for a little bit of time, but put an expiration date on it. There's an expiration date on every single thing in your house, whether it's a food item, whether it's an electronic, whether it's something else, there's always going to be an expiration date. So you need to start putting expiration dates on your feelings, because your feelings are the biggest things that can punk you out of progressing to where you need to go. And it's okay to feel, because we're the profession of feeling, but oftentimes your feeling has come from a place that is coded in, I'm just anxious and nervous and scared that this is going to fail, but I'm outwardly going to feel unmotivated, depressed, and beating myself up in this situation based on the fact that I'm not willing to stand up and be vulnerable in a profession that we want people to be vulnerable with us, but we're not willing to be vulnerable with ourselves and sit ourselves down and say, I've never done this before. This doesn't feel comfortable for me. This isn't where I saw myself. There may not be people supporting me around me. There may be people telling me that what I'm trying to do isn't possible. I may be telling myself that this stuff isn't possible, but I need to set myself aside because there are things that I don't even know that I'm capable of doing based on passing this exam, based on pushing past the adversity, based on pushing past the negative thoughts that I have within myself, whether it's someone seeing me go through the situation and be like, dang, that person should give up, or that person should not be going back in the ring and fight. But you're more excited to walk in there based on the fact the experience isn't just about you. It's about what can you do for the other people around you, or how can you motivate the people around you, or how can you come back to a study group or talk to other people and say, yo, I've been through this. You can keep going and you can keep pushing because I've been through this and I kept pushing. And it doesn't mean that you have to do the exact same thing that I've done, but you can learn from the skills and abilities and competencies that it took to get there. There is always going to be a positive energy or a positive outlook on any adverse situation that I've ever gone through or that I see everyone else go through. You may have failed the exam one time. You may have failed it up to 12, 13, 14, 15, let's say you failed it 30 times, as long as you still have a thought in your head that you want to pass this exam, when you walk in on the 31st try, it is not going to be less sweet than if you would have passed it on the first try. Why? Because the goal was for you to pass the exam. So for you to compare yourself to someone else, that if you told them the goal and objective that you achieve for yourself, they may not give you the feedback that you need to hear from them. So you need to stop running from other things and run to the things that you want, because the things that people are telling you that you can't do are them just telling you things out of their experience on what they're afraid of and what they've never seen done. So you need to start sitting down and saying, what am I capable of doing, or what am I talking myself out of doing, or who am I robbing based on the fact that my experience or my motivation or my drive or my energy, my positivity, my emotions, my accomplishments, my down days, my depression, my anxiety, my failed attempts, what am I robbing from other people based on not speaking about my experience? Or what am I not doing about not sharing my experience? Or what am I not doing to keep achieving and building myself up? When I'm willing to look at clients, I'm willing to talk to other people, I'm willing to invest in their dreams, but I've put nothing into my goals. I've done nothing to put into myself to get myself to where I think I should be. But even when I feel like I'm not supposed to be doing what I'm supposed to be doing, you're still doing the right thing, because as long as you're trying and as long as you have a heartbeat in your chest, you still have a chance to change anything in your life. You could go back to school right now and get a different degree if that's what you actually wanted to do. You can go back and talk to somebody else. You can change your situation right now, and the person that you are 5 years from now will look back and be like, yo, I'm glad that I did this. I'm glad that I was able to walk through this difficult situation, such as failing the exam multiple times, or I'm glad that I went through the things that I went through back in the day, because now I have a gratefulness and I have a humbleness about myself that now that when people are suffering and walking up to me and saying like, yo, I'm not sure if I can do it, I'm not telling them, yo, I know exactly how you feel, but it's like, okay, so what do you need to do with and for your situation right now that can get you pumped up right now? And it may not be 100% of the time. You may not be charged up and motivated and built up and pumped up like you're ready to fight someone 100% of the time. But when you have those down days, you need to start surrounding yourself with people that are looking at you and saying, yo, why not try that? Why not get up and go and do this? Why aren't you wanting to study right now? You said you wanted to study 3 times a week, but you've only done 2 times a week this week. So what's the difference? And if you're like, I'm not sure that I want to do this right now, then be honest. If this goal is not to take the exam, or if you don't want to pass the exam right now, that is 100% okay based on the fact that that's what you want for your situation. So don't let anyone else put their expectations or their view or their nervousness or their feelings or their experience onto you, because you're so uniquely gifted, talented, and have all these unique things about you that if you're not willing to look yourself in the face and say, I'm gifted and talented and I can change lives today, what is wrong? What is wrong with your mindset? What is wrong with your situation? Or what is wrong with the environment that you put yourself in, that you don't think that you're so powerful and gifted and that you could change lives at this moment? So how do you remain positive in adversity or failing several times, it's based on the fact that I know that I'm going to walk into the exam and pass it at some capacity. And when I pass the exam, I'm going to take my experience of everything doesn't come easy to me to I'm going to try and create a private practice, and I may not be successful with it for 5 years based on the fact that it took me X amount of time to take and walk into the exam. But the person that has not gone through anything, when they do go through something, it is going to tear their world down. So start counting the blessings in the darkness. So when you're in the light, or when you're in quote unquote difficult situations, it's easy for you. You're like, I've been through this before. I've been pushed to the brink. I've went days without sleep. I've been talked out of things. I've had people down me every single second of my day, but I still told myself I can do this. So that is how you're going to remain positive, is start building yourself up like you want to build other people up around you, and stop surrounding yourself around people that are draining of your energy, because energy costs. Stop giving it away. We have to pay every single month for our energy bill, but you're willing to give your energy and time to people that aren't willing to give it back to you or would not give you back to anything else. Stop sacrificing yourself and start prioritizing yourself to get to where you need to go, based on the fact that you are intended, you are entitled, and you've been empowered and gifted and given these skills to get to the next level. So do not let them lay to waste, because there are other people that are no longer on this planet, or there are people in your life that if you do not do what you're supposed to do at this given moment, they're not going to be able to get to the best possible version of themselves.